Hello, and welcome to the BYU Family History webinar series. I'm Marin, and I'll be your host for this webinar. We'd love to know where you're listening from and how you heard about today's webinar. You can enter that information into the polls on the left side of the screen. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Dr. Mark Clement. Dr. Mark Clement received his PhD in computer science from Oregon State University in 1994. His bachelor's degree and master's degrees are in electrical engineering and are from Brigham Young University. His research areas include bioinformatics, computational biology, and high-performance computing along with family history. He supervises the Family History Technology Lab at BYU and loves to help people with their family history. We'll be hearing from him about the BYU Family History Technology Laboratory. And as we get that presentation set up, I'll just bring your attention to the question and answer box. Any questions that you have throughout the webinar will be, you can put those questions in that box. We'll address your questions at the end of the presentation. Any other feedback or comments can go in the chat box at the bottom left side of the screen. And if we're ready, I'll turn the time over to Dr. Clement.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to share a few ideas that we've developed from the Family History Technology Laboratory at BYU. The Family History Technology Laboratory is supported by about 40 undergraduate students who develop all our applications and maintain them, along with several faculty members who help to make this happen. Really, we're trying to lower the barrier of entry to family history applications and mostly try to make things simpler and more attractive to people who are starting out in family history and to seasoned researchers as well. The nice thing is that we have a ton of students that actually do all the work who get some great experience in supporting large software applications, as well as providing a service to the family history community. Here's the students that we're currently working with, and we currently have about 300,000 users and about 50,000 users every week that use some of the applications from the Family History Technology Laboratory. So first application I just wanted to kind of describe to you is called Relative Finder. This is an application is often used by wards or other groups to see how members of that group are related to each other. The application allows you to authenticate through familysearch.org, and then it looks through your tree to find relationships between you and other members of your group, as well as other groups like famous people, politicians, performers, and a whole bunch of other groups that are part of Relative Finder. So this is a lot of fun, and if you're doing some party at work or a ward activity, you're likely to find that almost everybody is related in some way with other people in the group. First of all, you're going to see a display that shows you how you're related to the different groups. In this case, there's an LDS BYU group, sports figures, people from the Mayflower, current apostles, LDS women auxiliary leaders. So there's just a great number of groups that we've kind of set up so that you can use those, as well as groups that you may have like your ward or some other local group. It's actually been around for a while. The first version of the relationship finder was made in about 1997. Back then we would do everything on paper and provide it for people who are using it. We also took the Relative Finder to youth conferences during that period of time. And at this point, Ancestral File kind of came out. So around 2010, we changed the name to Relative Finder. And this has been just a big improvement because now it's available over the internet and doesn't have to be a custom thing. Around 2014, it was Family Search certified. And today we have a ton of users that we have actually registered and are available that you can find your relationship to. As you go to the normal page, you'll notice down in the bottom left corner there is see more groups. So in addition to these, like if you look carefully, I guess this is kind of a small font, but in addition to composers, authors, entertainers, you can go to see more groups, and you can then find all kinds of interesting groups. Use the U.S. Navy 4-star admirals, BYU alumni, and you can pick out in the favorites column which groups you would like to actually take a look at. And as you click on those stars, it will then show you how you're related to all of those people. So that's kind of a lot of fun to, I guess, to get people interested in family history by noticing that they really are connected to a lot of people and they're not just all alone. Once you've connected a set of these, then it will show you how you're related to those people in each of those groups. And along with that, you can also see your relationship to them. 8th grade grandfather, 8th grade aunt, and if you click on the link to that, you can actually show exactly which ancestors connect you to that particular person. So here's, for example, somebody from the Salem witch trials, and you can find out which person that particular relative is. I'm just going to try to take a look here at Ann Putnam, who actually in the days of the Salem witch trials, sometimes they would, if one child was deceased or died, they would name the next child with the same name. So with Anne, you might ask which witch is which. That's my last attempt at humor. So you can also look at business leaders, along with other groups that you can create in a custom way. This is kind of another feature that's kind of nice. You can look for relatives that are associated with one particular ancestor, like John Lothrop, and you can see that he actually was related to a number of the prophets, as well as some prominent figures like George W. Bush. So all of these features are available through Relative Finder and can be a lot of fun as you kind of explore your ancestry and become familiar with kind of the excitement of family history. This is kind of interesting, but here we're looking at relatives for Pocahontas, and it's interesting that she's related to George W. Bush as well as Marilyn Monroe and a number of other interesting people. You can also use a feature in Relative Finder. You can use the Connect feature, which allows you to look for people that are near you. So for example, at BYU, we have a lot of singles conferences, or we had a family history event here where we had several hundred people out in the between the Wilkinson Center and the library, and they were able to see the physical location of people that were related to them and walk up and introduce themselves and say, hey, we've got a common relative. Here, let's look at this path, and maybe we can work together on this. So that's kind of a neat feature. Again, I really like the idea that it shows up on a map, so you can actually walk over and say hello to the person. At Roots Tech last year, we had somebody in the audience. We showed them this this interface, and we had about 700 people in our room, and so all of them were running Relative Finder, and there was a ton of people on the map. But she had never known anybody from her mother's side of the family, and she always felt like she wasn't quite complete because she didn't have that half of her family history. And all of a sudden she saw on the map somebody that was related to her through her mother's side. I walked up to him, and she came up to us afterwards and said, you know, this isn't just software that provides interest. This actually makes me feel like I'm connected to my relatives. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do with Relative Finder in general. Anyway, that's one of the applications. If you go to fhtl.byu.edu, you can also see all of our other applications. Another one is OnePage Genealogy. And if you are preparing for a family reunion, for example, and want to get all the descendants of a common ancestor on a screen, you can find that this can be quite challenging. The problem with the normal sheets that you get from pedigree type charts that you get from Family Search is that they can take an enormous amount of space because the page height doubles each time you put on an additional generation. So your paper size really grows exponentially, and to do 15 generations would require the length of a football field if you wanted to have a big family reunion with a number of different cousins. And if you wanted 20 generations, it would require a piece of paper 1.8 miles long, which is about twice the length of the campus here. So we're trying to address that. We actually came up with algorithms to compress and fill in the spaces, because often your family history is not complete. And so we're going to use the spaces from lines that are not quite there and fill them in for to allow you to print this out in a more compact way. Here's one of the printouts we have in our lab of Joseph Smith and his descendants. You can see you can get a bunch of generations in a pretty small piece of paper. And so this might be something that would be fun for a family reunion, and then people could mark off where they were in the tree, and you could do it in a fairly small piece of paper. Another application that's a lot of fun is Virtual Pedigree. And this is an application that is similar to the view that you get in Family Search when you go to their tree view, except as you drag, it will automatically expand later generations so that you can actually see where you are. I've noticed in the normal tree view and Family Search, I often get lost as to exactly where I am. And this allows you to just click and drag to explore your family tree. Again, it has a smooth view window. It also provides descendancy research hints, so it can show you that this person, these people were married for 30 years and they don't have any children, so that's an idea for somebody that you could potentially look for some children as you're doing descendancy research, as well as finds temple ordinances that need to be done, and we'll show them on the tree as you page through your tree. Another application that kind of goes along with this is Ascendancy Explorer. And Ascendancy Explorer was designed to help you to find cousins who need temple work, particularly for people that are first getting involved in family history and just want to be able to catch the spirit of Elijah as they look for people that they can do temple work for. So this is a very simple interface that allows you to press one button. It then goes back 5 generations and comes down to all of those descendants and looks for people that need temple work done. However, we're going to filter out any results that don't have sources attached, because we don't want people to do temple work for questionable members of their tree. And there also must be no duplicates. So one of the most frustrating things for beginning family history buffs is when they find some temple work that needs to be done, but there are duplicates to resolve, and it's a nightmare, and they give up before they actually make their way to the temple. And anyway, you'll be able to see which ordinances are available and be able to click on the button to go to Family Search to reserve those ordinances for temple work. So this is great, particularly for youth as they're preparing to go on a temple trip or something. They can find names and hopefully, our experience is once you find a few people that need temple work, you're going to find a whole bunch around there, and then you can do more traditional means of search in order to find others to do temple work for. Again, there are several applications that are available, temple time, other things like this. What I've ended up finding here is that a lot of them do not give you full, they don't give you names that are ready to take to the temple. So these Ascendancy Explorer ensures that they're not a duplicate. There's at least one source, and that it's ready to go. We can also show how you're related to them, and allows you to download the link so that you can go ahead and reserve that temple work. Another application that's kind of fun is Pedigree Pie. Some of you may have been involved in going to Ancestry.com or MyHeritage, where they do a DNA test on you. You end up maybe sending back a little bit of spit, and they're going to come back and provide you a pie chart with where your ancestors come from. In this case, we're coded by color with which countries your ancestors are coming from. And so the thing we're going to do with Pedigree Pie is we're going to go ahead and do that search through your ancestors and determine what percentage of each of your ancestors come from each country. So this is, again, another real fun thing that you could potentially use in a family reunion, or just to get people interested in family history. Genealogy is another great application, and it's, of course, modeled after Jeopardy, except that the questions that you see here will be related to people from your family tree. So in dates, it'll ask you questions like, which of your ancestors was born in the 1830s and lived in this particular state. And it really provides you an opportunity to become familiar with your ancestors. It's a great game for kids as well, and we just really have had a lot of fun in our family home evenings with Genealogy. A related game is Wheel of Family Fortune. And again, this is similar to the Wheel of Fortune game that you might see on TV. So you go ahead and spin the dial, and it's going to let you guess one of the letters. This is going to be a name of one of your ancestors. And you can guess a letter, and if you guess correctly, then you get that amount of points that you can use to buy vowels, or eventually you're going to end up guessing the person's name. And so again, it's going to keep track of how long you're taking, and you can use multiple players so that you can have a competitive activity for family night or at some other family gathering. So Wheel of Family Fortune is a lot of fun, and recently somebody put in sound so you can actually hear the wheel clicking as it goes around. So that's kind of fun. Along these lines, we've just this last year released a bunch of ancestor games. And these games are primarily oriented for kids that can be as young as 3 or 4 years old, to get them interested in their ancestors. So one of them is a matching game. So again, these will grab pictures of people in your family history out of their memories, and will allow you to match them. So you're going to turn over cards and find the matching ones, similar to memory or some game like that. And it also, at this point, what I've noticed is when my kids get a match, then they notice what the name of that ancestor was. So along with learning, developing their memory, they're also learning the names of these ancestors. So that's kind of fun. Here's the family history coloring book. So this will allow you to select from pictures of your ancestors, and it turns them into something that small children can color. So for a family activity, we could pick one of these And while to keep the kids busy while you're talking about other family history things, you could allow them to color these kind of pictures. So you can mess around with the controls to make it lighter or darker and to adjust the contrast, and then eventually print it out so that you can have it for your family reunion. So that's kind of fun. We also have a family history crossword, so it's going to take names and places and events that occur in your family history from family.search.org and create a crossword puzzle for you. And then you go ahead and follow the across and down hints to figure out what all of the words are in that crossword puzzle. So this is maybe more of a 10 to 12 age type activity that you could have at a family reunion. We also have a family history word search. So again, you go ahead and find the words in this word search, and as you drag over them, it will go ahead and circle them, or you can print it out and hand them out during family reunions so that people could use them. Again, we're just trying to get people involved and get a taste of the fun of family history so they can become more involved. Here's word scramble. So again, the letters of these ancestor names are going to be scrambled. And so you go ahead and type in the correct ones. And it's going to figure out how long it takes you to do that. So it's kind of a competitive thing as well. This Record Quest is a brand new application that was built by in collaboration with computer science students, where the Family History Technology Lab is housed, and family history department students. So we basically worked out the story for this game so that you would actually go through the steps you need to do for real family history. So of course, maybe the first thing you want to do is talk to your family, right? Look for their records. So in the game, the first step you're going to do is talk to your family and ask them about records. And you're going to interact with virtual players that will give you clues as to where information is. And then you're going to move around on as you walk through houses and neighborhoods and graveyards to find family history information. This is a great game for teenagers, and as we've gone around to family history fairs, they have just had a lot of fun with Record Quest. And again, it's going to, if you have a family reunion or something, maybe young people are going to think that this is really boring and it seems like it's a bunch of old people that are talking. And so the Record Quest was an attempt to get young people involved in family history and to help them to see that this could be fun. So here's the player in a graveyard, and he's going to be asking, do you know where this particular tombstone is? He'll interact with different people, and when he finds it, he can then go to the next phase of the game. Similarly, there's going to be places where he has to make his way through mazes and puzzles, and there's spiders that can jump out and bite you, and so it's really a lot of fun to play. But along the way, you're also going to start learning how to look at tombstones and get information. What game would be fun? How you solve problems, and how you build critical thinking skills that will allow you to do real family history. Once you find a tombstone, in this case, you can find the birthday of your grandmother, and then you can go ahead and it will take you to the next place where you find more information about her. Now you have that birth date. You'll learn how to read census records and find the information that would actually allow you to make it to the next stage of the game, but it also allows you to find real ancestors as you're doing things in family search. Also, we're going to have some quizzes that are used to reinforce concepts. So, what do you need to do next? How do you read a census record? And those things allow you to make progress through the game as well. We're currently working on enhancements to Record Quest that allow you to sign in with a family search authentication so that you can put information from your real ancestors into the game. So now this becomes allows you to do real family history, because in order to make progress in the game, you're going to have to go to family search, find something out about this real ancestor before you can make progress in the game. And that's kind of where we're going in the next version of the game. We'd also like them to have, we're actually working with Family Search to determine how many batches of indexing this person has done. So before they can go to the next level, they have to do a real batch of indexing, or they have to attach a real source to an ancestor, or remove a duplicate. And so all of these are kind of interesting problems, but kind of match with our real goal with the game, which is to teach you in easy and fun ways how to do real family history and get particularly youth involved in this. Although I've seen a lot of adults playing this as well and having a lot of fun. One of the more recent games that we've developed is called Tree Sweeper. And this is probably for more advanced family history people. It is intended to find problems in your tree so that you can actually correct them and improve the quality of the tree at familysearch.org. And so, for example, when you run Tree Sweeper, it may find somebody who was born when their mother was only 10 years old. So that's highly unlikely. So maybe what you need to do is go in and figure out either the mother's birth date's wrong or the birth date of the child is wrong. Sometimes you'll find a child who was born when the mother was in her 90s. And although that may have worked for some Old Testament characters, it's probably highly unlikely in the records that we would have access to. So anyway, this is a great tool. It again goes back through your ancestors and gives you a probability that certain events are correct. We've actually done some mining of the family searches tree to find out the real probabilities of certain events so that we can really flag things that we know are in error. And so this is a great thing for more advanced family history people to make progress and clean up their tree. Again, here's a couple of examples. This shows that a particular person lived to be 97 years old. There's only a 0.0066% chance that this occurred. So, it may be accurate, but maybe these would be people that you'd want to go ahead and look at and make sure that that information is correct for them. One thing that's kind of fun is to note when events from your family history occur on your calendar. And so the family calendar application allows you to download calendar information from all of your ancestors and then import it into whatever calendar application you like. You can put it into Google Calendar or Apple Calendar so that it then pops up with other events in your weekly schedule. And you can I know for me that it just causes me to think about my ancestors and maybe to prioritize doing more family history as I see those events coming up in my calendar. So again, here you'll kind of see these events showing up and correlated with the dates that your ancestors were born or died or were married. So where are we going in the lab? We have a bunch of students that are not only maintaining these applications, but we're currently developing some virtual reality applications so that you can wear a 3D display and explore your family history in that way. We are also working on improving the suggestions we get for temple work that you could potentially do for your cousins. We also have a project to determine whether the health of the family tree or the accuracy is increasing as we have lots of people working on the exact same tree. So this is a kind of an experiment. There's a hypothesis that having one tree that all of us work on will improve the quality, whereas Ancestry.com, every person has their own tree. And so we'd like to answer that question of, is the accuracy actually improving, and are we getting less errors as time goes on? And we also have a group that's working on automated indexing for historical documents, and we've been working quite closely with FamilySearch.org and are getting amazing results, probably better than human indexing for most historical documents, censuses, and wills, and other historical documents. So that's kind of an exciting thing that involves machine learning and some other more advanced topics for our students. So again, here's the URL. If you go to fhtl.byu.edu, you can get access to all of these applications, as well as some new applications that we'll probably announce at Roots Tech in February. But
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that this webinar has been a valuable use of your time. If you could take just a moment to provide your thoughts on today's experience, we'd really appreciate it. You're more than welcome to suggest ideas for future webinars in the feedback and suggestion box at the bottom of the screen. Our next webinar will be Thursday, September 13th at 4 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. We'll be hearing from Catherine Grant, who will be giving a presentation entitled From Snarky to Civil, Improving the Way We Treat Each Other in the Genealogy Community. You're more than welcome to email us at fhl_webinars@byu.edu. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our Facebook and Twitter accounts to stay up to date with the BYU Family History Library. Thank you so much again for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful weekend and hope to see you next Thursday.